Good afternoon. We'll call the Public Safety and Judiciary Conference Committee to order. Today is Tuesday, May 13, 2025, and we do have a quorum present. We're going to start out with some testimony on Senate File 281 relating to the coercion crime. And we have a testifier via Zoom, Jamie Bremseth. So why don't we go ahead and get started with that? I don't know if Jamie has any specific remarks already prepared or if it's questions from the members of the committee. We're unmuting you, so if you'd like to go ahead, there we go. If you go ahead and introduce yourself, please, and then tell us what you'd like to say, and then we'll open it up for questions from the members of the committee.
Thank you. Thank you, members, for hearing my testimony today. My name is Jamie Bremseth, and I live in Olivia, Minnesota. I am married with 3 kids. My oldest son, Carter, is now in heaven, and my 2 youngest are 16 and 12. I'm a mental health professional working with children and adolescents in 2 rural school districts in Minnesota. I also work in a mental health crisis center and interact daily with children and adults who are experiencing suicide ideation. On December 5th, 2021, my son, Carter, died from suicide. After being unable to reach him at home and needing to talk to him, I ran home from my daughter's dance recital to find him laying in his bedroom. He had shot himself with his hunting rifle. To say I was in shock was an understatement. Carter did not experience depression or clinical anxiety. He was about the happiest kid you could meet, almost annoyingly so. He loved golf, loved his family and friends, and had started to look forward to his future. The night he died, I knew something terrible had happened to cause his death, but I didn't know what at that time. The police conducted their investigation, and about 10 days after he died, we learned he had been the victim of financial sextortion. On 12/4 of 2021, he was contacted by someone on Instagram posing as a 16-year-old girl. On the evening of 12/4 and into 12/5, they just text back and forth. At about 4 p.m. on Sunday, 12/5, is when the perpetrator first asked him for nudes. Carter originally said no. He told her that he wasn't comfortable with that. But this girl was good at what she did. She convinced him. It was easy to see she had been grooming him for this moment, the entire conversation, and she knew exactly what she was doing. We learned that it took less than an hour from the time that Carter was first asked for nudes to the time that I found him. She shamed him, telling him she was going to send his picture to his friends. He begged her not to and followed her demands, which included sending her money. When she started asking him for more money after the first initial $200, he learned that she also sent his picture out to a friend, is when he first started making statements that he was going to kill himself. I read this conversation between Carter and the perpetrator. It started on Instagram, but she moved it to Snapchat right before she started asking for nudes. I saw his fear, panic, and shame. She absolutely tortured him. He begged her to stop more than once and told her how scared he was. In the last 3 years since his death, I have learned a lot about sextortion and have met multiple parents who have lost their sons to suicide because of sextortion. I believe the deaths in our country have now totaled close to 45 or 46 kids who have died. Parents from all over our country are losing their children because of evil and greedy people. They are being targeted, tortured, and shamed online. Carter is not the only one in Minnesota who has died. There is at least one other boy who has died because of financial sextortion, but his family has not chosen to be public with it like we are. As a mental health professional, I often hear about kids getting targeted online, usually by their peers. I had multiple conversations with Carter, trying to educate and protect him from the risks of sending nudes to his friends or other people and the risks of bullying and coercion on social media. And this still happened to my son. We live in a very greedy world, and people somehow feel safer interacting with people online when I think that they think that because these people aren't real, it's safer. This is a really scary combination. People who knowingly commit these crimes need to be held accountable. My son's life mattered. We continue to work with the Minnesota BCA, who is investigating Carter's case. His perpetrators are from Nigeria, but the same scenarios happen in our state every day. They do not all end in suicide, but kids especially do not deserve to be extorted, coerced, or otherwise tricked or blackmailed. We as parents need to be responsible and educate our kids in order to keep them safe. But I do hope that as legislators, you will also do your part in holding people accountable who target and hurt our kids. Our kids really need us to protect them. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Bremseth, and we're also sorry for your loss, and thank you for your bravery going public with this, so we can evaluate how to approach this from a legislative standpoint. Appreciate that. Do any members of the conference committee have any questions for Ms. Bremseth at this time? Chair Moeller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you as well for coming and sharing your story about Carter and your advocacy to try to make sure this doesn't happen to any other kids. We really appreciate the time you've spent. I understand you testified in the Senate before, and then coming back here and having to do it again. It's a big ask on our part to have you tell this story again, and just want to acknowledge that and say that we really appreciate you being here.
Any other members of the conference committee have anything they'd like to add while Ms. Bremseth is on the line? I'm not seeing any. Ms. Bremseth, you are welcome to stay on the line. It's a public hearing, of course, and so, but there's no need unless you want to be available to answer questions if they come up. We'll open up the conference committee for discussion amongst ourselves at this point. So does anyone from the conference committee have any discussion you'd like to engage in on the proposed inclusion of Senate File 281 in the conference committee report? I think everyone's digesting this right now. So, Ms. Bremseth, we're going to conclude this portion of the conference committee. Appreciate your being here. Take good care. All right, members, the next step on the agenda for today is to adopt some additional policy items that we believe there is some consensus on. So we're going to first turn to Chair Novotny for a motion.
Thank you, Chair Latz. I move adoption of Article 4, R17, House Language Lines 48.1 through 48.25. This would provide local jail inmates convicted of assaulting a sheriff's correctional officer to serve the sentence consecutively to the sentence for an underlying sentence. It expands the current law that requires state correctional inmates who assault state correctional officers to serve the sentence consecutively. This bill went through the committee process in the House. We limited the scope of the bill to the first through fourth degree assault. We also addressed the potential scenario of a gap in serving a consecutive sentence to stayed sentences by requiring only stayed sentences to be served concurrently.
Is there any discussion from members of the conference committee on Chair Novotny's motion? Anyone in the audience wish to be heard on this? All right, Chair Novotny moves adoption of Article 4, R17, House Language Lines 48.1 to 48.25. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion prevails. Senator Westland, do you have a motion for us?
I do, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I move adoption of Article 5, R11, Senate Lines 101.10 to 102.4 with the following changes. On line 101.14, delete preserve and protect and insert the word document, which is in essence taking the House language that we discussed. Deleting lines 101.17 to 101.18 That is a provision that we are still having a considerable amount of discussion on it regarding fleeing individuals. That's going to be put aside, and Representative Feist has indicated a desire to continue to try to work on this to reach some agreed-upon language next session. And then 102.4, after the word "the," before the word "search," insert "active," so that will read, "to facilitate the active search for a missing person."
Is there any discussion from members of the conference committee on this? Chair Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll just note too, that final amendment that Senator Westland described, inserting the word active, is sort of a combination of what the House and the Senate language was coming into conference. And we were able to work out an agreement that sort of really best reflects where the discussion went, and language that's kind of consistent actually with where both bills were at, but I think makes it a little bit cleaner for the stakeholders. So thank you.
So we continue to put some guardrails around the authorized use of UAVs in Minnesota. Appreciate taking steps forward in that regard in a thoughtful manner. Seeing no further, anyone in the audience wish to be heard on this before we take a vote? Seeing no further discussion, Senator Westland moves adoption of Article 5, R11, Senate language lines 1.10 to 101.10 to 102.4 with the changes she described. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion prevails. Senator Umu Verbetten, do you have a motion?
I do, Mr. Chair. I move adoption of the language in the amendment coded SCS 1609A3 and direct council to insert the language in the conference committee report in the appropriate article. Just to explain this amendment a little bit more, in 2023, we made changes to the felony murder, aiding and abetting statutes, made some just additional clarifying changes in 2024 regarding retroactivity. Currently, folks can, who are eligible and have gone through the application process, can be resentenced to the predicate felony or to a lesser included offense. What this language does is ensure that when that does happen, the predicate felony or that lesser included offense sort of redesignated for the felony murder charge that they received at the time. So keeps the original conviction date. And this language also just clarifies that that applies to any folks who have received that resentencing from August 1st, 2023.
Is there any discussion from members of the conference committee on this proposal? Anyone in the audience wish to be heard? Senator Umu Verbetten moves adoption of the A3 amendment into the conference committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. That's the conclusion of our formal agenda for today. Anyone have any announcements to make before we adjourn? Not seeing any. So it's a tired bunch, yes. It's only Tuesday. It's that time of session, yeah.
That post-lunch.
We have to start providing coffee at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I think. All right, well, then being no further business to come before the conference committee today, we are adjourned.